And welcome back to the Engage A podcast here with Cameron Dietzel and also Luke Dibert as well. They're in the same room right now, neighbors. Fellas, say what's up. If you're there.
What
yeah,
up?
There we go. All right. We're going to be talking about the games that happened Friday and Saturday. Luke was actually at, in Atlanta, Georgia. What's the stadium? Mercedes-Benz Superdome?
Yeah, it's Mercedes-Benz. It's the Mercedes. It's not the Superdome.
Yeah,
I know
that's
it's
the one
the
in New
Mercedes.
Orleans.
The one where the Falcons and Patriots.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, Georgia's going to be playing there for 3 times this year. Their opening game, their conference championship, and now in their first playoff game against who do they play? Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's a little suspicious there, but
It is a little suspicious. Home field advantage.
yeah, that's.
I mean, from what I saw when I was at the game on Saturday, it was like 75% Georgia fans, and then they said it was going to be 50-50, but it wasn't. They sold most of it to the Georgia fans, so it's pretty much a home field advantage at that point.
Especially when they're versing Ohio State.
Correct, because I don't know, Ohio State and their last game that they just played didn't look too well. But also, if you take a look at last year, who the national champion was, that team got destroyed by Alabama in their conference championship. A top 2, top 3 team last year, and then ended up rematching with them in the national championship, and they won that game. So maybe Ohio State does the same thing to Michigan. Just a little bit of a little bit of craziness, if we say.
I think that Bama was overrated, and I think Ohio State's really overrated. I think that Ohio State's going to go back in there and get smoked again.
All right, well, we'll talk a little bit more about these teams when we get to the rankings and then the college football playoff, kind of break down what our thoughts are and everything. We're gonna let's start off with the LSU Georgia game. Since Luke, what did you see? Live. I took notes on this game, but it's obviously better if you're live at the game, seeing everything that's going on. Stuff that we might not see on television or anything like that. What was your analysis or?
Well, I feel like the LSU team, just after they got that blocked field goal and they returned it for a tutty, LSU was out of steam. They didn't have a lot of emotion. They didn't look like they were the same team that they were at the start of the game. They did come back though and score, but then Georgia just drove the ball down their throats. And leading into the week, Nathan was giving me some insight about Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was walking around in a boot all week. And me personally, I think that they should have put Nuss in the entire game, Nussmeier, because Daniels was a sitting duck back there. He couldn't move. I mean, he had a few good, decent scrambles at the beginning of the game, but after that, like by the end of the first quarter, he just couldn't move. Wasn't the same, and then they didn't put Nuss in until the second half. So,
I think personally, Nussmeier, however you say his name, actually played pretty well for a second-string quarterback. I mean, he was a redshirt freshman and came into this season. I mean, this kid's got a cannon.
Mini Jaden Daniels out there.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels being a junior going into his senior year next year, and then Nussmeier going into his junior year. I think we have a potential QB battle either way with both them. I mean,
from what I've heard from Nate, little insight, Nuss and Daniels have been battling all season. It's like 50-50, but the thing that Daniels has got on Nuss is his height and his speed and his ability to scramble and being a dual threat quarterback.
Right.
Nuss is a really, really good gunslinger. He can really read the field well. You could see that in the game against Georgia. They had glimpses of greatness, but then their defense just couldn't do their job. I mean, he was when he got first put in the game, everybody was chanting for him to get back out. But the thing was, they put him in a 3rd and 16 situation, and then once they started putting him in where he had his own drives to set up and had the ability to do whatever he had to do, he really executed. It was a big difference in the second half. I mean, going down 10-35, it's really hard to pull your team out of that. I think that if they would have put Nussmeier in at the beginning of the game, I think that would have been a little bit of a different story. But LSU's defense just couldn't do their job and stop them.
Watching it on TV, also, you can kind of tell that a lot of the LSU players are running out of steam after a few lucky plays. I mean, that interception off the helmet, that was absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
And then the
dude, that
kick
play was
return,
crazy.
Yeah.
I
They had a lot of they had a lot of unfortunate plays. That targeting call that got reversed for Georgia, that kind of sucked. That player should be gone. He shouldn't be playing next week. The ref, man, that was a bullshit call. Even the ref on the other sideline, he even was like complaining at him. Even the Georgia fans were booing. Like that says something when your own team's booing.
yeah, that's my kind of what I saw, Jaden Daniels on that drive that they got the field goal blocked. He went 6 for 6 for 59 yards passing. I feel like that's the only drive that he put together that was like, okay, he looks like the quarterback that he was at times this year. He was like, because at times this year when watching this LSU team, especially in that Bama game, like he stepped up in big moments, whether it was with his legs or with his arm. But like when I watched the game versus Arkansas, or I even watched the game versus Texas A&M, he just doesn't look like that dynamic quarterback that has that dual threat. Like he's basically a no threat ability at that point because one, he's been hurt, and two, like I mean, he's got a decent arm. Yes, like at Arizona State when they played Wisconsin in that bowl game last year, I was like really thrilled by how he played and was kind of confident when he transferred to LSU last year. But now, like watching him play in this game and like some of these big games, like yes, he can perform, but when you also have guys like Boutte, Neighbors, the tight end, what's his name, Mason Taylor or whatever.
Mason Taylor,
Yeah.
they got Tom.
Yeah, they got Brian
they
Thomas.
got Williams, the running back.
And like
they have a good
when you
offense.
have all these people, like honestly, if you put a quarterback like Bryce Young in this situation, maybe like this team probably goes 13-0 and like wins the SEC. Like I don't know. I think Nussmeier looked really good in the second half. Obviously, Georgia isn't keeping all their starters out there, running the same scheme that they were running in the first half because, when you go up by a certain amount of points, you obviously kind of like, ease off the gas a little bit. They're not looking to dominate LSU or anything. They already know that they're in the college football playoff. But, I think, honestly, the Georgia secondary won them this game. Guys like Bullard make plays in this game. Ringo is obviously the lockdown corner that he's been all year and is going to be a high draft pick next year. Christopher Smith, I mean, he returned that punt, and then he had that one interception too. Mondin, a guy that I really didn't know too much about on this Georgia defense, he ended up coming up with the pick off the helmet, making a tip drill type play. Like, I don't know. I was really surprised by, honestly, this Georgia defense offensively. Like, Stetson Bennett played well, but I didn't even think they were that good on the ground until the second quarter when Milton and when they took McIntosh out of the game and let Milton get more carries and he could hit big explosive plays like that 151-yard run.
Me personally, looking at that Georgia team, I mean, we went into that game, as an LSU fan, going into that game, I feel like we knew we were not going to probably win. And it kind of showed that Georgia isn't as dominant as they were last year. I mean, they've had a lot of close games this year. Their defense has carried them throughout. They had a good offensive game against LSU. But you also have to remember, LSU, they weren't even predicted I think it was like fourth or fifth.
Yeah, they were projected fifth, like in their own conference. I heard my guys that I listened to talk about it earlier this week. Like they were like, LSU is like not supposed to be here at all. They were supposed to be like maybe not even. They were not even. I think they were supposed to be like a 6-win team or whatever, like in the projections.
And I think at the same time, you should have to give them credit for even making it there and to come out and at least fight. I think next year LSU is going to be a problem. I think that Georgia is gonna lose a good chunk of pieces. They might not lose everything. They're gonna probably still be a good team. They'll probably still win their conference. But I think that LSU is gonna be really good. I think Bama. I don't know about Bama because aren't they losing Young next year?
Yeah, well, Young's going to the draft. Will Anderson is going to the draft. The two best players.
So I think the Bama team is going to be one of the worst Bama teams that I've seen in a long time, and I think that LSU, Georgia, and
maybe I don't know. I wouldn't put.
I don't know how
Tennessee's
going to do next year.
I mean, Tennessee.
I don't know how.
I think Tennessee also. This is like a pro.
They were frauds this year. This year they were a bunch of frauds.
I think they're losing Jalen Hyatt to the draft too this year. So
I think personally that Michigan's going to be running the NCAA next year. and for the next few years.
They got a lot of
the way that Clemson played last night. I didn't watch it live, but I was keeping up with it a little bit, and then I watched a little bit of the highlights this morning.
Not such a good team,
right? But like Cade Club, I don't know though. It's against North Carolina, and like North Carolina's defense is pretty much a joke. It's like basically
it's North Carolina. It's not like a top 10 team.
Yeah, I mean,
look what JJ's doing. JJ McCarthy is an absolute unit. He is him, man. He went out there this season and he's led his team to 13-0. 13-0 is pretty nuts.
I can't remember the last time Michigan went undefeated.
He's a sophomore, right?
Yeah, he's
he a sophomore.
He's just a true because he last year he was. Because last year, a lot of people were pissed that he wasn't. Well, we'll transition in this Michigan-Purdue game now that we're talking about JJ McCarthy. But no, JJ, people were pissed last year because he was just a true freshman out there. I mean, he was the number 1 ranked dual threat quarterback coming into Michigan, which is really surprising because I honestly, if I'm a quarterback, I really don't want to go to Michigan just because I might not even get over 20 passing attempts each game and be able to show off my arm and how I can create drives, just by using my arm or maybe using my legs a little bit. Like they're pretty running back dependent. They obviously rush the ball way more than they pass the ball, but still JJ in this game, like I love seeing him inside the red zone. He has such good zip on the ball and putting it in tight windows and finding guys like in the back of the end zone or in the back corner, able to make these short to intermediate passes look really good, especially when moving in the pocket or scrambling outside. Like, I don't know. I think it's something that he's going to be able to do again next year. I don't know if he's a pro quarterback or if he's a 4-year guy. We will see. I don't know how he translates to the NFL, which obviously NFL scouts are going to be drafting him. But they say Will Levis is going to be a top 10 pick. So, who really knows these days? But yeah, JJ's just a sophomore to answer your question, Luke.
This Purdue game that they just played, Michigan came out really fast and strong. They came out with a 3rd and out on Purdue and then went down and drove for a touchdown.
Yeah,
but I feel like they kind of got comfortable.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dietzel, but that touchdown catch by Loveland, that first catch, that was a nice double contested catch that he made, just on the pylon.
That was, and I believe truly that Michigan got comfortable in the first half, and that's why they came out and I want to say they were only up by 1 at the end of the second quarter during halftime. I don't know if that's true or not, but they kind of got comfortable and Harbaugh had to get them all together and at halftime, and they came out a totally different team in that second half.
Yeah,
they just kind of steamrolled Purdue.
They scored 29. They won the second half 29-9 compared to the first half where they only won 14-13. But I mean, that's been the Michigan identity this whole entire year. They play better in the second half, especially in the third quarter. So
I think that's like for a lot of teams. LSU's been a second half team.
Not Ohio State. That's all I gotta say.
Ohio State. I don't know, man. I think if they go into Atlanta and shake them up at the beginning of the game, I mean that's the thing that kind of ruined LSU. They went in there, they were good. They should have scored. They should have gone up 3-0. Their defense wasn't playing bad at all. They 3-and-out at Georgia on the first drive,
right? And
then right after that, they went down and scored. I feel like it would have been an entirely different game if they wouldn't have gotten that field goal block return. Back to Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan-Ohio State.
You mean Michigan-Purdue?
No. I'm going to talk about Michigan and Ohio State because they're in the playoff.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Ohio State's got that stellar offense that they have an amazing passing game, and I don't know how it might give Georgia a bunch of problems. I don't know for sure though. It depends on how they come out and start playing.
Georgia's got that.
If Ohio State, because Ohio State, to interrupt this a little bit, Ohio State's got huge offensive linemen. Like one of their offensive tackles is 6'8", 360. If they could learn to somehow run block in the next month and keep their running backs healthy and maybe just average like 3.5 yards per carry, because honestly, I don't see them getting over 4 against a pretty good Georgia team. Like Jalen Carter obviously is going to disrupt on the defensive line. But I like if Ohio State can just like, have their running game be somewhat a threat, because I think that was a problem against Michigan. In that second half, they could just not run the football against Michigan at all and relied so much on their passing game that it ended up hurting them. And Michigan was able to just use their, balanced play calling, or I guess it's more run heavy, but they were pretty balanced in the Ohio State game and just take advantage. Like it's easier to pick apart a defense when you're able to run and pass the football. Like obviously that's just simple football logic, but
there was a lot of questions coming into that game about Corum, but Donovan Edwards as a running back, he is pretty much the same level as Corum. Okay. I think he's playing really well.
I think he could, honestly, by the time he's done at Michigan, I think he's gonna be better than Corum. I don't know about Haskins. Haskins was really good last year, but Edwards is just a better athlete than Corum. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. Like if he can just learn the mental side of being a running back, which like finding the holes, how to be patient, like he shows flat. Like that one, I think it was a 25-yard rushing touchdown or whatever. Like on that counter play where he made both those defensive linemen run into each other. And then ended up taking it, like making a couple guys miss. Like if he can like be consistently elusive and make plays in open space, like he's gonna be something special, man. He was awesome at West Bloomfield. I remember seeing a ton of stuff from like the D zone and all of that on him. So, and he was a 4-star recruit on 24/7. So, anything from the Purdue side or anything else that you? Oh, one more comment. You know who Will Johnson? The only 5-star in Michigan last year, he's from I don't remember what Grosse Pointe school he was from, had 2 interceptions last night. I remember one of them being when Purdue was in the Michigan red zone, or Purdue was in the red zone and trying to score, and Will Johnson like jumped. I think it was some route on the numbers, and I can't remember the other one, but like. That's like he only had one other interception this year, and I didn't even know that he was playing on the outside. I thought it was I know DJ Turner went down with an injury. I don't know if he ended up coming back, but I mean, props to him, man. That's a big moment for a freshman, and he's obviously showing that 5-star rating in a big time game like the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, after the LSU game, I went and I called Nate and just talked to him, and he said that they're still in high spirits. I mean, they're ready for whatever they're versing, and once they came out with that they're versing Purdue, whenever, he said that they're ready. I mean, they're pumped. They're ready to go with whoever. If Daniels isn't healthy, or if they have to go with Nosemeyer, they're ready either way to go. I think that game's going to be a good game either way. I mean, the way that Purdue played against Michigan that first half, even though Michigan's a second half team, I think either way it's going to be a good game. But
right, and Charlie Jones, I mean, he's just the David Bell replacement, the Rondale Moore replacement, whatever. He's that top dog on the Purdue offense that's really high in passing attempts and everything. I mean, I think Aiden O'Connell is a phenomenal quarterback. Obviously, he didn't translate to touchdowns or anything, and he did throw 2 interceptions, but like still 32 for 47 for 7.8 yards per attempt is like awesome. Like I still think he's a pretty good quarterback. Obviously he's gone after this year. And then I mean Charlie Jones also an awesome receiver too. Great playmaker. I don't know how this Purdue team is going to be next year, because I know they're like a lot of the guys were like they're losing, so they kind of like thought like, oh, maybe this is like the last dance, but obviously it didn't turn into anything. What bowl game is LSU and Purdue playing?
The Citrus Bowl.
So they're gonna make a documentary on them winning the Citrus Bowl, maybe. That's the next last dance thing. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much other notes on this game. I watched this live, and honestly, I didn't like all the other conference championship games. I wanted to watch back because there was crucial moments. Like we'll get into this Utah USC game next, but like obviously, like I don't know. I just knew Michigan was going to win this game. I said it on Wednesday, that they were going to win 45-17, and I mean 43-22. 2 points less for Michigan, 5 points more for Purdue. Like still a 3-possession game either way. So I guess it would be 4 if
I think next year the Big Ten West is going to be dominated by Iowa. They're bringing in Cade McNamara, who is in competition.
I don't know. I'm interested to see what Wisconsin's going to do, honestly, with Luke Fickell. Like that's a team that's on my radar. I don't think Matt Rule is going to do anything with Nebraska in his first year. I think he's just going to try to establish, a system with the guys that he has now and bring in own guys in the portal, obviously, and then obviously in the recruiting process. And
if we go into the future a year from now, I think we're going to see Iowa versus Michigan here in the Big Ten championship.
I think the year after next year, I think next year is probably going to be the last Big Ten championship game, and then they're probably going to disband divisions when UCLA and USC join. That's what I'm thinking that's going to happen. You want to get into this Utah USC game?
For sure.
All right. So my thoughts, honestly, I thought USC, when I didn't watch this. This was the only game I did not watch live at all. I was checking it here and there, but I was kind of busy on Friday night. So I went back and watched I watched it all the way through in a condensed version that I found on YouTube. And I was really honestly surprised by how Utah was able to make plays after the catch. This one, Money Parks, he runs a 9 to 10 intermediate route. I think it was a slant or a drag. He breaks 2 tackles as soon as he catches it, makes another guy miss, and then takes it all the way for a touchdown. Yasmin, he catches a 30-yard pass from Rising, chucks a defensive back on USC, which I don't think it matters because obviously they need to do the Coach Stevenson tackling circuit. So a lot more because they blew a lot of plays. I thought this USC team was a lot better than this. I was kind of hyping them up.
All I gotta say is USC shit the bed, and they're a bunch of phonies.
Yeah,
I think honestly in this whole game, I think both teams were playing hard. This was a hard-hitting game. Both teams were playing
that one hit on Rising,
man.
Yeah.
That was insane. His helmet got knocked off. That was nuts.
I think
that set the tone for the whole game.
Yeah.
Both teams were playing to kill each other. I mean, it was an insane game. Even when I watched the condensed version, I mean, these kids were playing to just knock each other's heads off.
Yeah, until the second half, until the fourth quarter, and then USC just flipped the switch, and then honestly, I think a lot of these games, what I watched over the weekend were whoever won the ground game won the conference championship, and I'm pretty sure when you look at the total rushing numbers in each game, I'm going to clarify that here in a second. But I mean, the difference between this Utah and USC game is the rushing attacks. Utah averaged 6.4 yards per carry, and then Jaquindon Jackson and Micah Bernard, even Bernard was effective in the receiving game, kind of like how Deuce Vaughn was on Saturday as well. I don't know. I really like the 2 running back systems a lot, but Jaquindon Jackson had this one awesome 53-yard run where they ran it up the middle. I don't know if it was a zone or a trap, but it was just a beautiful run. Just everything opened up beautifully, and all he had to do was just hit that second or third gear, and just take off. And it was just an awesome play. Meanwhile, this USC offense got 56 total yards on 27 carries. You cannot be winning a football game in a high scoring fashion without having high, just more total yards in general. If USC's having over 5 or Utah's having over 500 total yards, and USC can't even, they barely crossed 400 and weren't able to convert on touchdowns. Really just doesn't matter at the end of the day. I think the only player that played really well for USC, obviously Caleb Williams was trying to do what he could do with his hamstring injury, and then Taj Washington, the receiver, he was pretty electric early on in the game. Other than that, I mean, Diabete, he had 3 TFLs and 2 sacks. Vaki was pretty good in coverage. He had 2 pass deflections, and then had other plays where he was good in coverage. And then Phillips, the third, that was another guy that I took notes on. He was pretty much locking down whoever was on the outside for USC. Anything else? Yep. Anything else on this game? I feel like we don't need to talk about it too much. I just think Utah, flat out, was the better team than USC. I think that's how you could put it.
Overall,
they beat them twice.
USC was in the fight all the way up until the fourth quarter, and so I think that their momentum was just gone in the fourth quarter. I mean, they just didn't have any will to fight, and Utah just kept that will to fight up until the end of the game. And overall, they just won that game. They were the better team out there. It doesn't matter how hard either team played. Utah was just dominating them, especially in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think Utah flipped a switch that USC can just not play up to, and that's how the game went in the fourth quarter with Utah just hitting big plays, really just in the second half in general. Like, obviously the third quarter scoring doesn't translate to it, but like Utah just looked so much better and USC looked flat. Maybe that's what it is with these just high air raid teams with superstar quarterbacks. They just feel like they don't have to make adjustments, and they just feel like, oh yeah, we could stick to our identity and not have to change literally anything offensively or defensively. So
because that opens up the defense to not be honest to the run for that other team.
Right.
If you're a high passing team, then that defense is just going to open up. I mean, they're not going to be stacking the box. They're just going to be ready for the run, or not the run, but the pass.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw this last Saturday.
Yeah. Speaking of the last game that we're going to mention on here, I didn't watch Clemson or North Carolina live, and I did not watch Tulane or UCF. Tulane is playing USC in the Cotton Bowl because they got their New Year's Six bid for being the best Group of 5 team. But, I mean, honestly, I know how Tulane is. I know how UCF is. Had no playoff implications, so I feel like it just didn't matter to watch.
Yeah. UCF, they came out with that early lead.
Yeah.
They looked really good in that game up until that end of that first
All I got to say
quarter,
is Tajay Spears. That kid is nasty. Put him on a team with a good offensive line, with like a big offensive, like put him on Georgia. He's having 300 yards a game. I'm kidding, but like he would still be successful. I feel like he'd be successful in a Power 5 offense is what I'm trying to say.
UCF was 8th in all of college football on third downs when it came to all their games this season, but against Tulane, they were just struggling on third downs all day. I mean, they'd get to these first, second, and then they'd come up to these third and longs, and they just couldn't convert. That's what ultimately made them lose the game against Tulane, 45-28.
Yeah. I watched some Tulane games all year, but I don't know. I just, unless a Group of 5 team like has a chance of making it, which obviously this year it wasn't like Cincinnati last year where they went undefeated up to the college football playoff, and then the committee ended up putting them in. But yeah,
Carter. We're not Carter. Noah.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about how Bama's not going to be good next year, but I think they are. Their new recruitment, Noah Drury.
Oh yeah. Officially,
he's a 5-star out of Heartland. 0 receptions, 0 targets, 0 yards.
No, did you see that scrimmage? He got that
interception. And he got the interception against Ann Arbor Huron that didn't do anything for us.
That kid is insane, though. I have a future with that kid. I'm watching him.
Yeah, I got a future behind the desk. That's where I got a future at. No, actually, since we're on here and talking about schools, what I'm doing actually post high school, I'm going to Specs Howard Broadcasting School at Lawrence Tech for a year. I don't know where you guys going. Where are you guys going to? I know you both are looking to play football at the next level. So.
Yeah, I'm looking to go either to Wayne State or Ferris here. I got a visit up in Wayne State this next weekend, and I'm waiting for Ferris at the end of their season. They're versing West Florida up here in this next week. And once they're done with their season, the recruitment process for Ferris is going to start opening up. And I'm in a lot of contact with their coach Sugars over here, the special teams coordinator.
Not stop laughing. Oh my God.
This kid is dying over here. This is hilarious. Luke, what are you doing after high school? Let's hear it.
All right, so right now I'm going to go up for a visit at Siena Heights. I want Ferris and SVSU and Concordia. Jacob just said, good luck to Cameron to not get shot at Wayne State. Hopefully he doesn't.
Oh, boy.
If he messes up a long snap, you never know.
I think it's a nice area. Actually.
Noah, where did you say you were going to college?
I'm going to a one-year broadcasting school at Lawrence Tech.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't look for any women there. They're not that good looking. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta warn you before you go there.
I took a visit there, like a tour or whatever. So I mean,
before he committed to Alabama.
How do you like the freshman dorms?
I'm gonna be commuting. It's only 2 day. It's only 2 days a week for 4-hour classes.
okay.
So I'm gonna
That
be
whole
chilling.
Wayne State area, though. Me and
I'm
Jackson
definitely
were talking-
cutting this out, by the way, because I mean,
No, don't cut it out.
We had to get a last out.
I'm not. I mean, I'll leave that in, and then I'm gonna cut probably this part out. I don't know. We kind of got distracted. We still got some stuff to talk about, but I'm gonna have to obviously reset.
Let's talk about the Kansas State versus TCU game. That's a great game to talk
TCU
about.
sucks. They're gonna get smoked by Michigan.
That's facts.
I don't know.
Don't say they won't, Noah, because
They got a month. They got a month of game plan. That's all I gotta say.
They're not going to be.
I thought Kansas.
JJ is a good-looking, hard-working, hell of a quarterback. He is him.
TCU and Kansas State, they came out of this game. They were They were throwing these deep passes, and a lot of them were connecting. I mean, it was insane.
Honestly, though, my opinion is if Malik Knowles doesn't get hurt in this game, I feel like Kansas State's passing offense looks a lot better than obviously what it showed on the field. I feel like Deuce Vaughn was honestly just the big playmaker for this game, and Malik Knowles, he's been like to that counterpart to Deuce Vaughn, you know, making receptions, turning stuff into big plays and everything like that, and he wasn't there to obviously do that. Guys like RJ Garcia, who got his first receiving touchdown of the season as a freshman redshirt. Ben Sinnott, the fullback, he had the one really nice wheel route out of the backfield, and then he ended up catching a touchdown too as well. I wanted to highlight Julius Brents. He allowed some big plays for Quentin Johnston, but he also had a interception in the end zone, and then I don't know, he was just locking it up all game. I feel like he did a pretty good job. Had a couple pass interference, but honestly every corner does with how officiating is nowadays. So
TCU has been a high rolling team all year. I mean, they've been averaging 41 points a game, and I think TCU looked great in the trenches this entire game
with Duggan and Miller, and Mercado.
They had great pushes up front all game long.
I mean, they averaged 5.9 yards per carry, but that's a little inflated by that one Max Duggan run. But I mean, still, like in that last drive leading up to overtime for TCU, the last one that they took it to tie it up, Max Duggan looked awesome. I'd never really seen him like run it like that this year, where he just took over with his legs, kind of like, you know, how Jaden Daniels did against Bama. Like it was like one of those performances where he just wanted it in that moment. I think he ended up getting hurt, and obviously, like when you look at their play calling and overtime and stuff, they weren't really trying to do too much with them anyways. They were trying to get running backs involved and everything. So I think
Kansas State, they had that great stop. I mean, you just got to have that drive, especially in OT for Kansas State. I mean, coming up to a 3rd-and-1 stop,
right on the half-yard line.
They just wanted it more than TCU. I mean, and then for that quarterback just a few plays earlier to come up short, that must have been so hard for that TCU quarterback. But
Duggan,
Duggan
ain't dubbing. Didn't go undefeated. But honestly, I'm really surprised how this TCU team played this year. They didn't really hit the portal that hard, in my opinion, from what I know, and got a new first-year head coach in Sonny Dykes, who came from SMU. So, and able to go 12-1 and not win your conference, but go undefeated in the regular season, and then lose a really close game to a Kansas State team you already beat earlier this year. Obviously, that game's a little bit different. And then this game, because Kansas State had one quarterback playing instead of 3 quarterbacks because of injuries, but still, I mean, they were in this game to the end. So that's all that really matters if you're TCU. You just gotta learn from your mistakes. You got a lot of time to game plan for this Michigan team. A little bit different than how Kansas State plays, but I don't think it's something that they can't handle. I think honestly, like this Michigan team, like they're really good. They're going to probably win this game if they just stay consistent and do what they've been doing all year. But if TCU can get Quentin Johnston in the big play situations and get guys like Tay Barber and Darius Davis, who really didn't get shown this game against Kansas State, involved, like this could be a really good game. And Kendre Miller, I don't think he's going to be an impact in that Michigan game, just because playing against a Kansas State front seven and playing against the Michigan front seven is 2 completely different things.
I think TCU got exposed in this game. Kansas State, I mean, they exposed a lot of holes in this TCU team. I don't
Right.
think that TCU
I don't think
quarterback played.
I think
I don't think he played like he
the best
usually
player
does.
on this TCU defense, in my opinion, is what's his face, Newton. He's a corner on the outside. He did a pretty good job in coverage, but other than that, like I wasn't really surprised. I wasn't like this TCU team generated some pressure, but that's when they sold out, and that's about it. Like I think this Kansas State team defensively was better, and it obviously showed. Not going into the 40s or anything. I said if this game was going into the 40s, TCU was going to win, but obviously it didn't. But I predicted Kansas State to win this game on what was it, Wednesday. So, and then I ended up going 3-1 on my picks. I think Sam went 2-2, and then Jack went 3-1 as well. He got Utah right, but he got this Kansas State TCU game wrong. All right, we're gonna take a break here, talk about college football playoff matchups, and then talk about a little bit about coaching carousel and transfer portal news. And welcome back from the break. Going to be talking about the college football playoff matchups that are happening on New Year's Eve, and then they play the championship game a week after on a Monday, which is really weird. But no, let's pull this up right here. What do you guys have to say about the college football playoffs, or the college football playoff matchups that are happening?
My prediction: Michigan beats TCU, Georgia beats
Ohio State,
and then I think Michigan's going to pull away in the the championship. Yeah, NCAA championship.
I disagree. I think that Michigan's going to beat TCU, and of course Georgia's going to beat Ohio because Ohio's a bunch of frauds this year. But I think Georgia's going to absolutely kill Michigan. This coming from a Michigan State fan, but I've been watching Michigan my whole life, but they're just not that team. I mean, they've got a very methodical team coming out this season. I mean, they're very run heavy, and they're a very
controlled and balanced.
Yeah, they're a very balanced team, but Georgia's just got those high ball. They just got that team. They're them, okay? Especially showing up against LSU. They're not as good as they were last year, but I think they're going to steamroll Michigan in the championship if Michigan does beat TCU.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Ohio State could give Georgia trouble, obviously, but it just depends. Like, this Ohio State team has never made second half adjustments all year, whether they've had to or not. And I don't know. Against Georgia, I just feel like they're going to be trying too much because they haven't played in over a month. They don't know what a game feels like. They didn't play. I mean, they did play on a big stage, but they played that game at home, not in a. Basically, I feel like it's going to be a more Georgia-controlled environment, and especially it being in Atlanta, and Athens is maybe an hour or two away. So, and a lot of fans that are fans of Georgia are probably fans of, or that live in Atlanta, are fans of Georgia because they're not going to be fans of Georgia Tech or Georgia State.
Especially with it being in this in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, Georgia has a huge home field advantage. I mean, I could see some Ohio State people coming down for the game, but I mean the ratio from Ohio State fans to Georgia fans, I mean, they might be able to try and control it, but they're going to get a total home field advantage.
Correct, which I don't know. I want to see. I really want to watch over some tape of Ohio State and Georgia before I give like my official analysis and my prediction on the game. Same thing with Michigan and TCU. I think right now, if these teams were to play, Michigan would beat TCU and Georgia would be Ohio State. But I'm going to watch some things over, see some things that I like, see some things that I dislike, what players could have big impacts on both teams that might not get shine. Like, obviously, guys like Christopher Smith and Ringo on Georgia get all the spotlight, or guys on Ohio State like Marvin Harrison or Timoleu like get all the spotlight for their teams. But like guys that maybe will be able to have like a breakout game or something like that. Kind of how like Will Johnson had this past week against Purdue, coming out with 2 interceptions and be pretty much locked down on when he was in man coverage.
Yeah.
Kind of weird though that Michigan and TCU are playing all the way out in Arizona. Like Texas isn't far from Arizona, but I mean Michigan's probably gonna have a crowd. Michigan's probably gonna try to get a crowd there. I mean, I know a lot of Michigan fans that are pretty passionate about this team. Now, Well, let's see if they take the trip out there. It is on New Year's Eve, but people will travel. It'll be a sold-out game, even if you're not a fan of either team. Like, there'll probably be a lot of media members there, obviously, and all of that. So
they're gonna need a break from this cold weather here in Michigan.
yeah,
Take a trip
go
down
out
to the desert.
dry ass heat in Arizona. Any other bowl matchups that you like in going on to, I guess, what you can call the postseason? Any games that interest you?
I like that LSU versus Purdue bowl matchup. I think that's going to be a good game, like I said before.
I think Tennessee and Clemson could actually be really interesting.
I like that game too.
Yeah, see what maybe Joe Milton can do. I don't know if is he eligible next year? I feel like he's been in college football for a minute. I just want to see what Klubnik's going to do for Clemson because I think they're moving past DJ at this point. We'll probably see him enter tomorrow at like 6 o'clock in the morning. But because, I mean, there's no point of him entering on a Saturday or Sunday. He's going to wait till even though the people have been there's like already over 400 kids in the portal. He's just going to wait till it officially opens. So
I'm also interested to see who's going to skip the bowl game for the draft for all these teams as well.
I mean, I already know Will Levis is already declared for the draft. Like, he's not playing in the bowl game that Kentucky's playing in. Like, he did it before. I'm pretty sure he did it before even the bowl games were. They're playing Iowa again for the second year in a row. They played last year because I was in Florida last year and they played in the Citrus Bowl, I believe. And I saw like a lot of Kentucky and Iowa fans, stopping at gas stations and all of that to go watch that bowl game, obviously, but. Yeah, I don't know. Kentucky, I don't think they're a good team without Will Levis, but I also don't think Will Levis is that good either. So it's kind of like contradicting each other. And then Iowa, I don't think Cade's technically allowed to play. So we'll see what Spencer Petras, what absurd completion percentage he has in yards per attempt. Texas Washington could be a really good game, actually. Penix probably will play. I don't know what he was. He's got to be. I don't know if he's going to the draft or if he'll even get drafted, but he's at least got to be eligible. And then obviously, Quinn Ewers in his second year is probably going to play because he's still got to play next year unless he wants to sit out or wants to transfer. Oregon, North Carolina could be a really high scoring game. I really like Drake May in North Carolina. That's the only reason why I'm saying anything about that game. This Troy UTSA game could be good. Two teams that just entered in today. The second bowl game of the year. I mean, if I was in Florida at the time, I believe the 21st. Like, I would go to this game honestly. $22. Sheesh. Watch some football. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't got. Maybe this Penn State, Utah. Oh, wow, Utah's in the Rose Bowl for the second year in a row. Obviously, they won the Pac-12 championship and then didn't make the college football playoffs. So yeah, that's what happens because the Pac-12 and Big Ten automatically get bids or whatever. I don't know. It's weird how it works. But Penn State and Utah, that'll be a pretty cool game. I think that'll be good. Cam Rising, he'll probably play. Sean Clifford will play his last game, hopefully, of his career in his 17-year football career at Penn State. Let's move into some coaching carousel stuff. The last time I talked about this, Brent Key was named the Georgia Tech head coach. Do you have any? I know you wanted to mention something about the Nebraska coaching change. With,
I think that Matt Rule. So the thing with Matt Rule, he came into Baylor, had a really good season. 2019, I want to say. He came to Carolina, and he's just not an NFL coach. I mean, there are some coaches that are just collegiate coaches than NFL coaches. Urban Meyer is a great example of that. I think Matt Rule is going to turn this Nebraska team around. He's just a collegiate head coach. He's not meant for the NFL, especially in Carolina. And I think Nebraska is going to be a contender in the next few years once he gets his whole team set up.
Yeah. I think just in the NFL, you can't really run a system because every team's pretty similar to each other. I mean, you have your differences in some of the play calling and what your strengths and weaknesses are, but pretty much everyone in the NFL is saying and unless you're the top of the top, every quarterbacks 10 through 22 are probably comparable to each other, and if put in different situations are worse or better. But no, it's college and NFL schemes are way different. Offensively speaking, Like you can actually have your own identity in a college football.
There's only a couple of college schemes that actually translated into the NFL. Like I remember back in the 2010s, the read option came into the NFL, and it's still kind of used.
Like Lamar, obviously Lamar and Jalen Hurts and stuff. But
yeah,
like,
but those are only limited.
Right, but
the college game, it really expands, and it really just like shows its true colors of how great of a play it is in college. But another example is Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense. When he came into the NFL and came to the Arizona Cardinals, it worked, but a lot of NFL
it wasn't
teams,
it wasn't consistent.
It wasn't consistent, yeah. And that's kind of how Matt Rule is with Carolina. So I think when he comes to Nebraska, I think he's going to be a hell of a coach for them.
Yeah. Any other coaching changes that you wanted to talk about? Hugh Freeze, Luke Fickell, anything like that? Luke, you want to say anything about any head coach changes?
No, but can I talk about one that just recently happened last year?
You could talk. You could talk a little bit about Brian Kelly. How you thought? I mentioned Sonny Dykes earlier when talking about Kansas State and TCU. So yeah, go ahead and talk about Brian Kelly.
I think Kelly's got a good mindset. I think he's a great coach. I feel like he is the one to lead LSU to their next national championship in the next 2 to 3 years. He has the ability to lead a team, coach a team well. I mean, look at his game plan against Bama. I mean, he came out there firing, and that ballsy
two-point
conversion was nuts. I mean, it was a perfect play call. They were not expecting it at all,
especially to a tight end. LSU doesn't really use their tight ends much either.
Right, like Mason Taylor, like that was like the first time he was really talked about all year when he came up with 2 touchdowns in that game. So
I think the way that Kelly's bringing in kids, they brought in a few 4 and 5 stars in during the season.
Yeah,
got him to commit. I think with his coach, he's not Coach O. Coach O, he was an idiot, and I feel like
you could say that.
I feel like he was an idiot that coached the team, great players. I mean, look at that 2019 team.
Yeah, that 2019 team is crazy.
Take away that team. Take away 2 of their offensive players. Take away Jamar Chase
and
Justin Jefferson
and Moss. No,
yeah,
take away
Zach
Jamar
Moss,
Chase and Moss. Thaddeus Moss.
Thaddeus Moss. That's what it is.
He can't win. He's not going to win.
Right.
He wasn't a coach that could really get the job done. He was a coach that with the right players, he could get it done.
I feel like Coach O really didn't have his team in mind first. He had a lot of other things on his mind.
Yeah, because wasn't he at Ole Miss first? Like, didn't he go from Ole Miss to LSU? Is that?
Yeah, there were rumors about Ogeron coming back and coaching again.
Where would he go?
Limit him in the facilities. Who we can bring into those facilities.
But I feel like that Kelly. The way he can bring players in from the north now, because it used to be they just recruited from the south.
Right.
Now they're bringing guys from the north. They got 3 guys from Michigan. They got the 1 offensive lineman from Muskegon. They got Nathan from Heartland. They got Dillinger from Clarkston.
Right. Yeah.
And then they brought in a few players from Notre Dame, the punter, Bramlett, and then they also brought in Daniels. I mean, the transfer portals bring up a lot of things, and I think he's making smart decisions. Everybody was clowning him earlier this year for all the TikToks he made with the players dancing around.
Yeah. I mean, Lane Kiffin did the same stuff. I mean, that's just sometimes what you got to do to bring in guys. You know,
he came in at the right time. I think he came in at a time where he's got a good enough team that he can that he can make something out of it. Because I mean, a 9-3, probably a 10-3. I mean, 10-4 year, 9-4, possibly 10-4 year. I mean, that's not bad. That's pretty much the same thing as the 2018.
And the thing with LSU too is that they're not stacked. They're not stacked on either.
Right. This is like probably one of the
This
least.
is a pure coaching team.
Like in the last 15 years, they've been pretty relevant. This is probably like one of the lesser talented teams. Like a lot of these guys aren't Brian Kelly guys. Like obviously you got guys flipping commitments to LSU or hitting the portal, But like Brian Kelly, I mean, he hasn't even been here. This is his first year. He hasn't had time to, recruit guys from that he likes from high school or like whatever assistants he has on staff to bring in. And so when he can build his own team, I mean, he schemed up some really nice stuff this year. Obviously, wasn't completely consistent when you got games like Texas A&M and stuff like that. But like still, this is a first year head coach in the SEC. You are not expected. I mean, no one expected him to even be in the top 3 for the what are they in the West? Yeah, the West. Mm-hmm. So like it's just LSU's got time, man. I would be really happy if I'm a booster or a head position at LSU in the athletic department. Like if you're an AD
that whole LSU team really showed who they were in the second half of the season. I mean, look at the Mississippi State game. Me and Luke were at that game, and they were struggling, but they came out.
Right, like Neighbors had that one huge play that I remember watching the end of that game, like the last 10 minutes or so. Just gonna name. Moving on from LSU, we're gonna name the coaches that ended up joining new teams. No new firings as of yet, but we will see what happens after ADs and other important people in universities, assess and are like, okay, do we want to let this guy go? Do we want to go get a guy that's out there? Because the coaching carousel, like obviously we saw with like Lincoln Riley in like January randomly where he just like left Oklahoma. So it'll be interesting. Trent Dilfer, he's been a guy that has been in the Elite 11 and everything. He's also in the NFL as well as a quarterback. Pretty interesting for UAB here. I don't really know how it's going to work. I don't really follow UAB football either, so that kind of also doesn't help. But I just remember the program getting shut down like a couple of years ago, and then it got picked back up. So it'll be interesting if he can bring in like elite offensive skilled positions. I mean, that can make the UAB team good. You can get a guy from the Elite 11 that you're like, hey, you want to come play over here? He can get a guy that was in the Elite 11 that's looking to transfer as well to come there maybe in his first year and pick up the program. Tom Herman goes to FAU. Don't really care. I didn't even know of this. G.J. Kinney from Incarnate Word, which Kerman Ward, the quarterback on Washington State, that's where he transferred from last year. Obviously, this was his first year in the Wazoo offense. Alex Golesh, Tennessee offensive coordinator, goes to USF. Hopefully he can bring stuff from Tennessee that worked this year when they had Hendon Hooker and translate that over to USF. But USF had one FBS win against Temple in Jeff Scott's tenure, which is pretty awful for an FBS program to begin with, or any program. And then, we could talk about this one. Colorado with getting Deion Sanders. I heard rumors all day that it was going to happen. It was going to happen. And then on the broadcast of the Michigan and Purdue game, I saw that it was official. And then he had a team meeting with his players at Jackson State. What do we think? What do we think of this move here?
I think that personally, he's obviously a Hall of Famer. We all know this. He's a great DB, one of the best DBs in the entire
maybe
game.
The greatest.
He may be the greatest. You could say that. I still think that Darrelle Revis is the greatest. The way he was just able to lock down players. Yeah. It's a sleeper pick for greatest corner. But overall, there's a lot of things that he can bring to this Colorado staff.
I heard about they just got over like hundreds of millions of dollars in their new facilities too, which is like perfect timing.
The things that he's able to tell his DBs that many other coaches just aren't able to translate with them is really going to be a game changer for a lot of these Colorado secondary.
Yeah, Colorado obviously a very awful team this year. Probably like they might be the worst team in Colorado in Division I. I don't know what FCS programs they have in Colorado, but obviously they're worse than Colorado State this year, even though they weren't great. I think what Sanders is going to be able to do now that he has like more boosters and more money and connections in the program, like he's going to be able to bring in transfers that would obviously never consider going to Jackson State, because Jackson State was a small FCS school that was an HBCU. Do we think he's bringing Travis over? Do we think Travis is staying at Jackson State, or do we think he's going to transfer somewhere else? Because his NIL value is going to be crazy. Like every program in the country is going to be trying to get that kid transferring over to their school, because I mean, maybe he stays at Jackson State because I know HBCU was obviously one of the biggest reasons why he transferred over there. But do we think he's going? Do we think he's staying? Or do we think he's going somewhere else?
I think personally, if I was in his situation, I would be leaving Jackson State. I mean, that's just a low-name school that I mean, if you were to go to any other school, especially any D1, high D1 school, he'd get his name out a lot more for the NFL than
anything else, right?
Yeah, than any other school. And at Jackson State, I personally don't know much about Jackson State, but I've never heard of them. But if you were to go to any of these other schools, it'd bring his draft stock up tremendously.
Yeah,
kind of the same thing that happened with Cam Newton back in 2010,
yeah, when he won the, I think
he came from, what was it, like Alabama?
It was a JUCO, yeah, and then he transferred to Auburn and then ended up winning them a national title, and he had a pretty successful career in the NFL. So I don't know. I think this move, obviously, he's going to bring other guys from Jackson State, like Shador is probably going to go over there. His son that plays QB, who's, from what I've seen, pretty phenomenal and maybe can translate to the FBS level really well. But I think he's going to be able to guys that, maybe wanted to commit to Jackson State, or like Jackson State was in their top 5 or top 3. And then now that he's at Colorado and they can offer more NIL, better facilities, better just everyday lifestyle while playing football. To Colorado, obviously, you're playing in a mile high, so there's that. But I don't know. I think he could do a lot of things with this Colorado program, but I also don't think this is a long-term destination for him either. I think he's going to wait for one big SEC job to open up, probably Texas A&M or Bama, but just looking in the near future. So this is kind of just like a pit stop, show that he can coach at a Power 5 level in D1. I think, honestly, that's what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then Jamie Chadwell, Coastal Carolina head coach, they moved into the FBS a couple of years ago, and then he's done very successful there. Got guys like Isaiah Likely into the NFL, and Grayson McCall is probably going to be an NFL quarterback too. Obviously, they lost yesterday to Troy, but Troy is also a really good football team too. Obviously, that's why they won the Sun Belt. I don't know what to think of this move. I don't know how much better of a program Liberty is than Coastal Carolina, just because I don't know the resources of Liberty. I don't know if are they private? Do you know anything about that?
I think that Liberty is private, and I know that they didn't have a good season this year. I don't know about Coastal Carolina.
They were 8-1, and then Hugh Freeze just didn't care about the rest of the season because he's like, hey, I'm going to Auburn. Yeah, I don't really care what we do the last 4 weeks. So
yeah, they're obviously not a school that any big prospect would want to go to, especially with that mentality. Even if they did go 8-1,
right?
They're not a school that anyone would really be wanting to go to. I think the only relevant year Liberty had was when they ran that play a couple, what was it, 11 years ago against Boise State?
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. They had Malik Willis last year. They've had Malik Willis, which is probably the most notable guy from Liberty in the last 10 years. The backup quarterback on the Tennessee Titans right now. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. I don't know what resources he has at that Liberty program, just because they were new to the FBS in I think 2015 or 2016. So I mean, just very, very mid-level program, and you can have a really high ceiling, but you can also have a really low floor there as well. So let's see what he does. He's a good head coach from what I've seen so far. So who knows? Maybe he just ends up leading Liberty to college football playoff in 2 or 3 years magically. So there's a lot you can do, but there's also a lot that you can't do. So we will see. Any names in the transfer portal? You said something about Cade McNamara earlier.
Yeah, Cade McNamara to Iowa. I think he's going to be a big game changer. Like I said, my prediction for next year's Big Ten championship. Like you said, probably the last Big Ten championship. The West.
Well, the last one with divisions. I think there's
the last one with divisions. I'd say
there'd still be it'd probably just be Ohio State, Michigan, or Ohio State, Penn State, whatever, or Ohio State, UCLA. Whatever it is.
I think Wisconsin is kind of in a scramble right now, especially with all their coaches over there and a lot of their players. I mean, for Wisconsin, historically, they've been a great team, but this last couple of years, but especially this year, they just haven't been themselves. And I think Iowa's going to really come out next season and win the Big Ten West, go to the Big Ten championship versus Michigan. Michigan's going to win next year. So that's my prediction for next year.
Yeah.
For the Big Ten.
Definitely can see it. Like, I thought the move to Iowa for Cade McNamara was smart just because I feel like it fits his style, how he plays. Like, he's not really a downfield quarterback. He's more of a guy like, okay, I feel confident in doing this and doing that, but I also like to get other guys involved as well and, just continue. Like, in that Michigan year, like, I thought they were fraudulent all year going into the Big Ten championship game or going into that Ohio State game, and then they won that and then won. Like, he can win you big-time games. Obviously, Iowa still gets pretty decent recruits in the Plains areas and all of that. Like, they'll still get athletes, and they'll obviously get big boys up front and everything like that. I think the best QB right now in the transfer portal is Phil Jurkovich from Boston College. He was pretty high on like guys to watch out for this year. Obviously, Boston College had just had a lot of issues this year, and now that he's a grad transfer, he's got 1 year to show out before maybe he goes to the NFL or does something else with his name. I'm pretty sure he has the highest NIL value other than Cade McNamara too, according to On3. So, and then there's Haynes King from Texas A&M, which I think he's terrible. So that's just my opinion. I think Connor Weigman's going to lead that Texas A&M team to be really good next year. 2 Indiana quarterbacks also entered in Connor Bazelak and Jack Tuttle, but I don't think it really matters. Indiana just showed that they can run the football with no remorse against Michigan State in that game. So the only notable running back that I saw that entered the portal was Trey Sanders, and that's just because he was a high-rated recruit from what class was it? I think it was 2019 or 2020. So receivers, I don't know if you saw this. What was the freakish athletic receiver from Oregon that, like, he didn't have a lot of touches this year, touchdowns, but like he's shown flashes of being really good. His last name's Thornton.
Coach Thornton.
Not No, this kid, like, he's like 6'4", pretty fast, can get has deep threat ability, obviously. I don't know if you remember Dakota's Crawford, like Dakota's to ever do it Crawford or whatever. You've seen that video?
I have not.
What? You don't know, Luke? Do you know what I'm talking about?
He is not here right now. He is off in like La La Land over there.
No, he's like, I'm Dakota's to ever do it Crawford, which, like, he was a 3-star recruit, and then
I know who you're talking about. That kid?
Yeah. He was at Nebraska, and now he's a freshman entering the transfer portal. So it's pretty interesting. I saw that name. Oh God, he's not on 3. On 3, I'm gonna have this. I didn't want 24/7 just because they missed out on a lot of like lower level guys that I didn't want to see. But you left out freaking the biggest player probably at the wide receiver position in the transfer portal right now. Other than that one Iowa receiver that entered, I think that kid could be pretty good somewhere else. He's like, it's something the fourth. So defensive, there's nothing much else to say about the transfer portal right now. I'm waiting to see when DJ enters and all these other guys like that just randomly enter, like, who's going to be the Dylan Gabriel? Who's going to be the Caleb Williams? Who's going to be like all these guys? I know Bama had a guy that I really liked, Kyrie Jackson. I know he's in the portal right now. But Michigan, since we're both Michigan State homers, they had that kicker that entered, and then they had Fletcher, who I don't think he played this year. He's in it. I don't know what other guys have entered from Michigan State. I guess we could look on here. Big Ten, Michigan State. So, yeah, they've had Michael Fletcher, and then they had this kid that transferred in earlier. He's an edge from Penn State. And then nothing else really, just Michael Fletcher. Apparently they don't – I think the kicker's name was Jack Stone this year.
What's your opinion on Mel Tucker?
I don't know. I don't know what to think right now. I think, honestly, the way he handled the tunnel was like – I mean, he did the right thing.
He did it in the best of his ability.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that is your athletic director, all your boosters, the president of the college, like everything all
there's no other way to really take care of that situation other than the way that Mel Tucker did. I think Mel Tucker is a fraud, honestly.
I don't know.
how much money he's getting paid right now doesn't correlate to the field, and you can't say, oh, this is his first year because
it's his third year, and obviously
year.
he proved that he can coach a team to that ability. But I feel like he kind of got lucky with the players that played last year, like offensive. I think because he's a defensive minded coach. Like he played DB at Wisconsin. He was a defensive positions coach, and I think he was a defensive coordinator somewhere. Like, he's coached defense all his time, and he played defense in his playing career, and he hasn't been able to translate the worst freaking passing coverage, and obviously the worst rush, one of the worst overall defenses. Like, in that Indiana game this year, they allowed, like, over 300 yards with the team that passed, I think it was 21 yards in regulation or something really bad for...
Isn't Michigan State, like, the 98th best pass defense in all of college football right now?
And
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
They're just like in efficiency ratings, I'm pretty sure they're even lower than that, but we're not going to talk about that just because their strength of schedule honestly really is not that hard this year. But like last year when the Big Ten was better, like you saw in that game with Purdue and Aiden O'Connell and David Bell, like they just tore that Michigan State defense apart, and that's the only reason why they won. Like, it's just very embarrassing to watch. And I think, I don't know, it's just, it's tough. Michigan State basketball, how are they doing right now? I know that game's going on. That's what I was going to turn on after.
That's the only thing that we got going for us.
And we don't even have that going for us right now because Jaden Akins and Malik Hall are injured. So it really just does.
That's not true. Michigan State's special team, one of the best in the nation. Bryce Behringer, the punter.
Bryce Behringer is actually really good. Let's
Hank
pull up this
Pepper, the long snapper. I mean, insane.
Like looking at this, like I don't know. It's just Michigan State athletics in general are just like not.
And you can't bring kids in if you're a losing program. Like this year, kids are going to look at Michigan State and look at that as like
the only reason why we got decent recruits last year is because this program has potential. They might actually do something.
They got a new head coach. They're on the rise, but I mean
now I don't know. It's really honestly like next year. I don't think it's as like if he doesn't do good, he gets fired because we have a huge buyout for him, and I don't think Michigan State wants to pay that just yet. I think they would rather take their chances than go look for another head coach after 4 years, because I mean D'Antonio was here for a long time. But I heard when D'Antonio left in February, I wish Luke Fickell took that job, because obviously we saw what he's done at Cincinnati, and now he's going to be coaching at a different Big Ten school, which is really tough. It's a tough pill to swallow.
I say personally, we take our couple years of Mel Tucker. We'll give him a little bit of time to see how he does build this Michigan State team. I'll give him like 6 years, but if he can't really do anything by then, because that's really how long a coach has. Like, I remember when Jim Harbaugh
everyone called Jim Harbaugh a fraud until they made the college football playoff.
Yeah, we'll give him a couple years.
He can't win big games. He can't do this. He can't do that. We're just above average team that doesn't do anything. And then they took that. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's also not just a coaching thing. Like, you also have to get players to buy in. You also have to get, like, it's deeper than just the head coach. Like, obviously, athletic director, boosters, and then your assistants on your staff that are spending a lot of time with your players as well. And then the players that you're bringing in, their morale issues and everything. So it's just really tough. I think Michigan State's just in a bad spot. I think they have a lot of young talent that came in from that recruiting class last year, like Caden Hauser, he's projected to start, and then we have guys like Keon Coleman who are still really young and going to play next year. So I don't know, it could be really exciting. It could be a really exciting program. Like they've been a bigger name in the last 20 years and have been more marketable than they were before. Obviously, with making the college football playoff once, and then them making a New Year's Six Bowl last year, and then them being good other years. Like D'Antonio did the same stuff though. Like he had years where like, oh crap, this Michigan State program sucks. I guess we're not going to put them on our radars at all. So, and
then the next year they'd go insane.
Yeah, so it's just really tough. I think that's honestly what Michigan State's best program is going to be, or is going to be.
Those 1 year wonders. Every couple of years, Michigan State comes out with a great team.
Right. Like I mean, that's just maybe what TCU is this year. I mean, obviously they've been good before, like in 2014 when they didn't make it. Whether they were just left
every
out.
Year, one of these, not necessarily no name, but lower D1 schools that are in these big Pac-12s Big 12.
Or it's not like that they're lower schools. Like they're on people like they have a sustainable fan base. They have money and stuff, but like they're not these Bama. They're no Bamas, Michigans, USC's, like Notre Dame's.
Perfect example of this. Cincinnati last year. Who would have thought that Cincinnati would have did as good as they did last year? During the preseason.
Okay, here's what it is. At the end of the day, you have a program, and then you just got to take advantage of when like that Cincinnati team put 9 kids in the draft, which is absurd. Obviously, they had Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant, Desmond Ridder, and other guys that I can't name off the top of my head. But like that's the thing. Like this TCU team, obviously, first year head coach might just be a fluke. Maybe he ends up sucking in like 5 years, and they're just like, oh. But I don't think they paid him a lot of money either, from what I know. Like that's what Jimbo Fisher was. He was really good at Florida State, and then they're like, oh yeah, we might have potential. I mean, there was like years with like Kellen Mond where they were looking to make the college football playoff, but obviously fell short. And then they ended up beating Bama, but then they literally have not done anything after that game. Like if you look at them. And then everyone thought they were going to be this year, obviously, according to preseason polls and preseason like power ratings and everything like that. And they scored one 30-point game in against an FBS opponent, and they struggled to score 31 against Sam Houston State in their first game. So I don't know. I think Texas A&M will be fine, but I think it'd even be better if they didn't have Jimbo Fisher.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, that's going to conclude stuff here, Dietzel. We went for a really long time. Pause, but
was this your longest? I'd say this your longest podcast.
It might be like an hour. Right now the total time is ticking. Yeah, this is at an hour and 10 minutes. So this is going to be our longest episode. We obviously have some stuff to cut out that I don't want in there completely since it's my show. But
it's for the fans. It's for the 30 fans.
Yeah, it is for the people that occasionally tune in and everything. So, but I mean, I was very pleased what happened. I think this ran really smoothly, and I'm glad that we talked about this last Thursday or Friday, whenever it was, and discussed everything that we were going to talk about before. Talked about the games that we were going to watch and whatever. So. Yeah, it was a pleasure having both of you on. Luke, I'm really happy with the insight that you gave us with obviously your brother being Nathan and then you being at the game there and giving us a little bit of a different perspective.
But before we go, Jacob's got to say one thing.
What is up, Jacob?
I have my hot take on the college football playoffs.
Okay, you got a minute and 30 before this meeting ends.
My hot take is Ohio State will beat Georgia. Michigan will beat TCU, and Ohio State will beat Michigan.
What?
I don't know.
I don't.
Because it's true.
I don't think Michigan could beat Ohio State twice. If Ohio State beats Georgia, Michigan can't beat them a second time.
Yeah, but Ohio State doesn't beat Georgia if everything goes according to script. So
according to script, though, I mean,
according to script, they're gonna lose.
Yeah.
According to odds.
Who thought LSU was gonna beat Alabama?
I did.
Everybody.
I thought it was gonna be a really good game, and I didn't know who was gonna win. But like, there was like unless you're a Vegas better, you thought that this game was gonna be probably down to the wire, which it ended up being. So. All right, that's going to conclude the show. Thank you, guys.